Sophia Bennett stood in the empty shell of Bennett Books, the store that had been her family's heart and soul for 3 generations. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light streaming through windows that would soon be boarded up, and the silence where customers' voices and turning pages used to create a gentle symphony felt deafening. 2 weeks. That's how long it had been since her father's funeral, since she'd buried the man who'd died of a heart attack brought on by stress, bankruptcy, and watching his life's work crumble under the weight of corporate greed. "Miss Bennett?" The real estate agent's voice echoed in the empty space. "We need to finish the walkthrough so I can hand over the keys to the new owners." Sophia nodded, running her fingers along the empty shelves where thousands of books had once lived. The shelves her great-grandfather had built by hand, where her grandmother had arranged the first children's section, where her father had held story time every Saturday morning for 30 years. All of it gone because Marcus Hartwell had decided their block was perfect for luxury condos. Hartwell Industries had made an offer that seemed generous at first, enough to pay off the store's modest debts and give her parents a comfortable retirement. But the offer had come with a deadline so tight it was clearly designed to prevent proper consideration. When her father had asked for more time to explore alternatives, to perhaps find investors who would preserve the bookstore's legacy, Marcus Hartwell had withdrawn the offer entirely. Instead, he'd bought the building from their landlord and tripled the rent overnight. No grandfather clause, no consideration for a family business that had anchored the neighborhood for 60 years. Just cold, calculated destruction wrapped in legal paperwork. Her father had fought for 6 months, taking out loans, selling their family home, emptying his retirement savings to keep the store open. The stress had consumed him, aged him years and months, until his heart simply gave out during a meeting with lawyers who were telling him there was nothing left to do. Marcus Hartwell hadn't even sent flowers to the funeral. Sophia pulled out her phone and looked at the photo she'd taken at the cemetery. Her mother, barely holding herself together, standing beside the grave of a man who died defending something Marcus Hartwell had destroyed without a second thought. "The new owners want to take possession Monday morning," the agent continued. "I know this is difficult, but I'm done here," Sophia said, her voice steady despite the rage burning in her chest. She walked out of Bennett Books for the last time, past the coming soon Hartwell Luxury Residences sign that had been posted in the window like a victory flag. But instead of heading home to help her mother pack the remnants of their old life, Sophia drove to the Seattle Public Library and started researching everything she could find about the Hartwell family. Marcus Hartwell was untouchable, too wealthy, too well-connected, too insulated by lawyers and money to be reached by conventional justice. But he had one weakness that Sophia could exploit: his younger brother Ethan. Ethan Hartwell, the philanthropist, the bachelor, the kind-hearted millionaire who gave away more money than most people would ever see. Sophia stared at his photo on her laptop screen. Warm brown eyes, genuine smile, everything his brother wasn't. According to every article she'd read, Ethan was beloved in Seattle's charitable community, generous with his time and money, completely devoted to making the world better, which would make destroying him so much more satisfying for Marcus to watch. Sophia closed her laptop and smiled for the first time since her father's death. She had a plan.
Welcome to another episode of Ever After. Kindly comment where you are listening from and subscribe so you don't miss out on our next episode.
Chapter 1. Sophia plots revenge after her father's death. 3 months later, Sophia sat in her cramped studio apartment, surrounded by research materials that looked like an FBI investigation board. Photos of Ethan Hartwell at charity events, copies of articles about his philanthropic work, and a detailed timeline of his public appearances covered every surface. Her laptop displayed the website for the Seattle Children's Literacy Foundation, where Ethan served as the primary benefactor and board chair. According to the schedule she'd meticulously compiled, he would be at their annual volunteer orientation tonight, the perfect opportunity for an accidental meeting. "This is insane, Soph," said her best friend Mia, looking up from the stack of newspaper clippings she was sorting. "You can't seriously be planning to marry a man for revenge." "Watch me," Sophia replied, applying lipstick with steady hands. She'd spent weeks perfecting her look for tonight, beautiful enough to catch Ethan's attention but not so polished that she'd seem out of place at a volunteer event. Marcus Hartwell destroyed my family. He killed my father as surely as if he'd pulled a trigger. But Ethan isn't Marcus. From everything you've shown me, he's actually a good guy. He's collateral damage, Sophia said coldly, though something in her chest tightened at the words. Marcus will do anything to protect his precious little brother's reputation. When I divorce Ethan publicly, citing irreconcilable differences and demanding half his fortune, it'll be the first scandal to touch the Hartwell name in decades. And you think Marcus will care more about that than money? I think Marcus's political ambitions depend on maintaining his family's pristine image. He's been courting the governor's office for 2 years. Sophia stood and checked her reflection one final time. A messy divorce that paints his brother as a heartless millionaire who abandons his wife? That'll end his political career before it starts. Mia shook her head. What about Ethan? You're talking about destroying an innocent man's life. Innocent? Sophia's voice sharpened with pain. His family fortune paid for the lawyers who buried my father in legal fees. His trust fund came from the same company that destroys small businesses for profit. There's no such thing as innocent when you benefit from other people's suffering. Sophia. My father worked 16-hour days trying to save our store, Mia. He took out loans against our house, emptied his retirement savings, borrowed against his life insurance, all because Marcus Hartwell decided our building would look better as luxury condos. Sophia's hands clenched into fists. Dad died believing he'd failed us. He never got to see Marcus face consequences for what he did. So you're going to become someone you hate to get revenge? I'm going to become someone Marcus Hartwell can't ignore. Sophia grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Ethan Hartwell is about to meet his future wife. He just doesn't know it yet. The Children's Literacy Foundation was housed in a converted warehouse in Pioneer Square, its warm lighting and colorful murals creating an welcoming atmosphere that made Sophia's stomach twist with unexpected guilt. Children's artwork covered the walls, and volunteers of all ages were setting up reading stations for the next day's tutoring sessions. Sophia forced herself to focus on the mission. Somewhere in this room was Ethan Hartwell, and by the end of the evening, he would remember her name. The revenge against Marcus Hartwell was about to begin. Chapter 2. Sophia meets Ethan and begins her seduction. Sophia spotted Ethan Hartwell immediately, not because he stood out as wealthy or important, but because he was kneeling on the floor helping a 7-year-old sound out words from a picture book. He wore jeans and a Seattle Children's Hospital t-shirt that had seen better days, and his dark hair was slightly mussed from running his hands through it. Nothing about him screamed millionaire, which threw Sophia's carefully rehearsed approach off balance. "That's him," whispered Janet, the volunteer coordinator who'd been giving Sophia the tour. "Ethan Hartwell, sweetest man you'll ever meet. Been volunteering here since we opened 5 years ago." Sophia watched as Ethan patiently helped the little boy with a particularly challenging word, celebrating the success with a high five that made the child beam with pride. The genuine joy on Ethan's face was unexpected. "He doesn't look like a millionaire," Sophia observed. "That's what makes him special. Money never changed him." Janet smiled fondly. "His brother Marcus is always in the society pages, but Ethan prefers to work behind the scenes. Half our funding comes from his foundation, but he'll deny it if you ask." A complication Sophia hadn't anticipated. She'd expected entitled arrogance, not humble service. "Excuse me," she said, approaching Ethan's reading station. "I'm Sophia, the new volunteer. Janet said you might show me how the tutoring program works." Ethan looked up, and Sophia felt an unexpected jolt when their eyes met. Warm brown eyes with gold flecks, framed by laugh lines that suggested he smiled often. This close, she could see he was even more attractive than his photos had suggested, but in a genuine, approachable way that made her pulse quicken for reasons that had nothing to do with her revenge plan. "Of course," Ethan stood, brushing dust off his knees. "I'm Ethan. Welcome to the best volunteer gig in Seattle." His handshake was firm but gentle, and he held eye contact in a way that made Sophia feel like she had his complete attention. "What brings you to literacy work?" Sophia had rehearsed this answer, but suddenly the prepared lie felt wrong in her mouth. My father loved books. He always said reading could change your life." The truth, or at least part of it, slipped out before she could stop it. "He sounds like a wise man," Ethan said softly. Past tense. "He died 6 months ago." Another truth, unexpected and raw. "I'm sorry for your loss." Ethan's expression was so genuinely compassionate that Sophia felt tears threaten. "I bet he'd be proud to know you're here, helping kids discover the same love of reading he gave you." Sophia blinked, thrown off her script by his kindness. "Thank you. That means a lot. Would you like to observe tonight or jump right in? Fair warning, the kids will test you. They have a sixth sense for new volunteers." "I'd like to try," Sophia heard herself saying. "If you think I'm ready." "I think you'll be great." Ethan's smile was warm and encouraging. "How about we start you with Emma over there? She's 8, loves princess stories, and has been waiting 20 minutes for someone to read with her." As Ethan introduced her to Emma, Sophia found herself genuinely engaged with the enthusiastic little girl who wanted to read every book about brave princesses in the entire library. This wasn't part of the plan. She was supposed to focus on Ethan, not actually care about the work. But watching Ethan move through the room, treating each child like they were the most important person in the world, Sophia realized her mission might be more complicated than she'd anticipated. The man she'd come to destroy was nothing like what she'd expected. Chapter 3. Sophia infiltrates Ethan's world of philanthropy. Over the next 6 weeks, Sophia threw herself into volunteer work with an intensity that surprised everyone, including herself. She showed up early, stayed late, and genuinely connected with the children in ways that had nothing to do with her revenge plan. "You're a natural at this," Ethan said one evening as they cleaned up after a particularly chaotic reading session. "Emma asks for you specifically now." "She's a sweet kid," Sophia replied, feeling a familiar pang of guilt. "Reminds me of myself at that age, all questions and big dreams." "What were your big dreams?" Ethan asked, settling into the chair beside her as they sorted books back onto shelves. Sophia paused, a copy of The Secret Garden in her hands. The honest answer was that she'd dreamed of taking over Bennett Books someday, of continuing her family's legacy, of creating a place where children could discover the magic of stories just like she had. "I wanted to own a bookstore," she said, then immediately regretted the admission. Too close to the truth. "Wanted? Past tense?" "Life had other plans," Sophia said carefully. Ethan was quiet for a moment, shelving books with methodical precision. "You know, I've been thinking about expanding our literacy programs, maybe partnering with local bookstores to create community reading centers." Sophia's heart clenched. "That sounds wonderful. Would you be interested in helping me research it? You clearly understand books and kids, and I could use someone with fresh perspective." This was perfect. Exactly the kind of opportunity Sophia had been hoping for to get closer to Ethan. So why did accepting feel like betrayal? "I'd love to help," she said. The research project gave Sophia access to Ethan's world in ways she hadn't anticipated. His downtown office was modestly furnished compared to what she'd expected from a millionaire, with more family photos than expensive art. His assistant Maria treated him like a beloved nephew, scolding him for skipping lunch and reminding him to call his mother. "He's one of the good ones," Maria confided during one of Sophia's visits. 20 years I've been working for rich people, and most of them think staff are invisible. But Mr. Ethan remembers my grandchildren's names, asks about my husband's medical appointments, gave me a raise when I didn't even ask." Each story made Sophia's mission harder, The Ethan she was discovering bore no resemblance to the entitled rich boy she'd expected to seduce and destroy. "Coffee break?" Ethan suggested, appearing in the conference room where Sophia had been reviewing partnership proposals. "There's a place downstairs that makes excellent lattes." "Sounds perfect." The elevator ride to the ground floor should have been routine, but when it suddenly jolted to a stop between floors, Sophia's carefully maintained composure cracked. "Oh no," she breathed, pressing the emergency button repeatedly. "No, no, no." "Hey, it's okay," Ethan said gently. "We're safe. The emergency system will have us out soon." "I can't." Sophia's breathing became shallow, panic clawing at her chest. "I don't do well in small spaces." Without hesitation, Ethan sat beside her on the elevator floor. "Look at me, Sophia. Just focus on my voice, okay?" For the next 20 minutes, Ethan talked her through breathing exercises, shared ridiculous stories about his childhood, and held her hand while she fought off the panic attack that reminded her too much of the crushing walls of debt that had killed her father. When the elevator finally opened, Sophia realized she'd fallen for Ethan Hartwell, and that was going to make destroying him infinitely more complicated. Chapter 4. Their fake relationship becomes surprisingly real. The panic attack in the elevator changed everything. Sophia had revealed genuine vulnerability, and Ethan had responded with kindness so natural it felt like breathing. From that moment, their relationship shifted from professional collaboration to something deeper and more dangerous. "Dinner?" Ethan asked the following Friday, lingering by Sophia's desk as the literacy center emptied out. "I know a place that makes the best Thai food in Seattle, and I feel like celebrating." "Celebrating what?" "3 new bookstore partnerships confirmed this week, thanks to your research." Ethan's smile was proud and warm. "I couldn't have done this without you." Sophia's chest tightened with guilt. "I just made some phone calls." "You made connections. You understood what these store owners needed to hear because you think like they do." Ethan grabbed his jacket. "Come on, let me buy you dinner. It's the least I can do." The restaurant Ethan chose was small, family-owned, tucked into a strip mall that most millionaires would never notice. But the food was incredible, and the owners greeted Ethan like family. "You come here often?" Sophia asked as they settled into a corner booth. "Once a week for the past 3 years. My assistant Maria recommended it after her daughter started working here." Ethan nodded toward a young woman taking orders across the room. "I helped Rosa get a business loan when the previous owners were selling. Seemed like the right thing to do." "Of course he did." Sophia was beginning to realize that Ethan's approach to wealth was unlike anything she'd encountered. Instead of hoarding or flaunting his money, he seemed to view it as a tool for solving problems and creating opportunities. "Can I ask you something?" Sophia said as they shared pad thai and spring rolls. "Anything. Why do you do it? The volunteer work, the philanthropy, all of it. You could just write checks and call it charity." Ethan considered the question seriously. "Because money without connection is meaningless. Anyone can throw cash at problems, but actually seeing the impact, building relationships with the people you're helping, that's where real change happens. Your brother doesn't seem to share that philosophy." Ethan's expression grew carefully neutral. "Marcus and I have different approaches to business. Different approaches to people, too, from what I've read." "You've been reading about my family?" Ethan's tone was curious rather than defensive. Sophia's heart raced. "Just the usual society page stuff. Hard to avoid when your name's in the paper." "Most of what you read about Marcus is probably true," Ethan said quietly. "But he wasn't always like that. Success changed him, or maybe revealed who he really was underneath. I try not to judge. Even when his business practices hurt people." Ethan studied her face. "You sound like you're speaking from personal experience." This was dangerous territory. Sophia forced herself to stay calm. "I just think people with power have a responsibility to use it well." "I agree, which is why I try to use mine differently than Marcus does." The sincerity in his voice made Sophia's chest ache. Here was a man genuinely trying to be good, to make a positive difference, to honor his privilege with service, and she was lying to him with every breath. "Ethan," she said impulsively, "what if someone hurt your family? What would you do?" "Depends on how they hurt them, I suppose. But I'd rather focus on healing than revenge. Revenge just creates more pain." Sophia stared at him, seeing everything her plan would destroy reflected in his honest brown eyes. "That's very wise," she managed. "Not wise. Just tired of watching anger consume people I care about." As Ethan walked her to her car that night, Sophia realized she was facing an impossible choice. She could continue with her plan and destroy the best man she'd ever known, or she could abandon her quest for justice and let Marcus Hartwell escape consequences for what he'd done. Either way, someone she cared about would suffer, and she was no longer sure she could live with either outcome. Chapter 5. Ethan and Sophia's Wedding and Deepening Connection. 6 months after their first meeting, Sophia Bennett became Sophia Hartwell in a small ceremony that felt both like the culmination of her plan and the beginning of her unraveling. The wedding was everything Ethan's generous nature suggested it would be: intimate, meaningful, focused on love rather than spectacle. They exchanged vows in the literacy center where they'd met, surrounded by volunteers, children from the program, and the families whose lives Ethan had touched through his philanthropy. "I never expected to find someone who shared my vision for making the world better," Ethan said during his vows, his voice thick with emotion. "Sophia, you've shown me that love multiplies when it's shared, that together we can accomplish more than either of us could alone." Sophia's throat burned with unshed tears as she spoke her own vows, words that had started as calculated lies but had become uncomfortably close to truth. "You've taught me that kindness isn't weakness, that generosity isn't naive, that choosing love over fear is the bravest thing anyone can do." Marcus attended the wedding, his presence a cold reminder of why Sophia was there. He was polite but distant, studying her with calculating eyes that suggested he found her an interesting puzzle to solve later. "Welcome to the family," he said during the reception, his handshake firm and slightly too long. "I look forward to getting to know you better." The threat in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. Their honeymoon was a week in the San Juan Islands, where Ethan had rented a small cabin that was more cozy than luxurious. They spent their days hiking, reading, and talking about everything except the lies that stood between them. "I can't believe I'm married," Sophia said one evening as they watched sunset paint the water gold and pink. She was curled against Ethan's side on the cabin's small deck, a blanket wrapped around them both. "Having regrets?" Ethan asked, though his tone suggested he was teasing. "No regrets," Sophia said, and meant it more than she'd expected to. "Just surprised by how right this feels." "Surprise good or surprise bad?" "Surprise terrifying," Sophia admitted. "I've never had anything this good in my life. Part of me keeps waiting for it to disappear." Ethan turned to look at her, his expression serious. "Sophia, what we have isn't going anywhere. I meant every word I said in those vows. Even if you found out something about my past that you didn't like. Everyone has a past. What matters is who you choose to be now." Ethan's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "Is there something you want to tell me?" For a moment, Sophia considered confessing everything. The revenge plan, her father's death, her real reasons for targeting him. The words formed on her tongue, desperate to be spoken. Then she thought about Marcus, about her father's grave, about the justice that would die if she abandoned her mission now. "Just that I love you," she said instead. "More than I thought possible." "I love you too," Ethan replied, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Whatever brought you into my life, I'm grateful for it." That night, as Ethan slept peacefully beside her, Sophia stared at the ceiling and wondered how she'd become the villain in her own revenge story. She'd set out to destroy a good man's life, and instead had discovered what it felt like to be truly, completely loved. The irony was almost too bitter to bear. Chapter 6. Sophia struggles with guilt as her feelings grow. 3 months into their marriage, Sophia was living a double life that was slowly destroying her sanity. By day, she was the devoted wife of Seattle's most beloved philanthropist, working alongside Ethan to expand literacy programs and establish reading centers throughout the Pacific Northwest. By night, she lay awake planning how to time their divorce for maximum damage to Marcus's political aspirations. The contrast was killing her. "You seem distracted lately," Ethan observed over breakfast one Tuesday morning. "Everything okay?" Sophia looked up from the coffee she'd been stirring absently for 5 minutes. "Just tired. The new reading center project has been intense. Maybe we should take a weekend away. You've been working nonstop for weeks." "I'm fine, really." But she wasn't fine. Every kind gesture from Ethan, every loving word, every moment of genuine happiness they shared felt like another weight added to the crushing guilt that followed her everywhere. "Sophia," Ethan said gently, reaching across the table to cover her hand with his. "Talk to me. What's really going on?" The concern in his voice nearly broke her. I'm not used to this. Being happy, being loved, having someone who puts me first. Sometimes it feels too good to be real." "It's real," Ethan said firmly. "We're real. I know you've been hurt before." "You don't know anything about how I've been hurt," Sophia said more sharply than she'd intended. Ethan pulled back slightly, surprise flickering across his features. "You're right. You haven't told me much about your past, but whatever happened, it doesn't change how I feel about you now." The opening was there. She could tell him about her father, about Bennett Books, about Marcus's role in destroying her family. She could confess her original plan and beg for forgiveness, hope that their love was strong enough to survive the truth. Instead, she stood abruptly. "I need to get to the literacy center. We're interviewing volunteers today." "Sophia, wait." But she was already grabbing her purse and heading for the door, fleeing from the conversation that could either save their marriage or destroy it completely. At the literacy center, Sophia threw herself into work with desperate intensity. But even the children's laughter couldn't drown out the war raging in her head. She was reviewing applications when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Enjoying married life? You're playing a dangerous game, Ms. Bennett. We should meet." Sophia's blood turned to ice. Only one person would sign a threat with M. Marcus Hartwell had figured out who she was. Her hands shaking, she typed back, "I don't know what you're talking about. The daughter of David Bennett, former owner of Bennett Books. Ring any bells? My office tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone, or Ethan learns some very interesting things about his wife's motives." Sophia dropped her phone, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. The game was over. Marcus knew exactly who she was and why she'd married his brother. Now she had to choose. Confess to Ethan and hope for forgiveness, or face Marcus alone and try to salvage what remained of her plan. Either way, the man she'd grown to love was about to learn that their entire marriage was built on lies. And Sophia wasn't sure their love was strong enough to survive the truth. Chapter 7. Marcus discovers Sophia's identity and plan. Marcus Hartwell's office occupied the entire top floor of the Hartwell Industries building, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a commanding view of Seattle's skyline. Sophia felt small and exposed as she was escorted through the gleaming reception area by Marcus's assistant, her heels clicking against marble floors that probably cost more than her father's annual salary had been. "Ms. Bennett," Marcus said without looking up from his computer as she entered his office. "Please sit." The use of her maiden name sent ice through Sophia's veins, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I don't know what game you think you're playing." "The same game you've been playing for the past 9 months, Marcus interrupted, finally turning to face her. "The long con. The revenge seduction. The plan to destroy my family's reputation through a messy divorce that would paint my brother as a heartless millionaire." Sophia's carefully rehearsed denials died in her throat. Marcus's smile was sharp and predatory. "You're quite good at this, I'll admit. The grieving daughter seeking justice for her father's death. Very compelling narrative. Marcus stood and moved to the windows, his hands clasped behind his back. David Bennett, owner of Bennett Books, died of a heart attack 6 months after I acquired his building for redevelopment. You blame me for his death. You killed him, Sophia said, her composure finally cracking. You destroyed everything he worked for, everything our family built. You buried him in legal fees and stress until his heart gave out. I offered your father a generous buyout. He refused. You gave him 2 weeks to make a decision that would end 3 generations of family business. I gave him a business opportunity. He chose pride over profit. Marcus turned back to face her, his expression cold. Your father's death was unfortunate, but it wasn't my responsibility. You tripled his rent overnight when he wouldn't sell. You made it impossible for him to survive. I made a business decision. Your father made a personal one. In business, personal decisions are usually fatal. The casual cruelty in his voice made Sophia's hands clench into fists. He was a good man. He employed 12 people, supported local authors, created a community space that mattered to hundreds of families. Sentimentality doesn't pay bills, Marcus said dismissively. Your father refused to adapt to changing markets. His failure was inevitable. His failure was orchestrated. Perhaps, but that's business. Marcus returned to his desk, pulling out a thick folder. What interests me more is your rather elaborate plan for revenge. Researching my brother, infiltrating his charity work, seducing him into marriage, quite sophisticated for a bookstore owner's daughter. Sophia's throat tightened. What do you want? The same thing you want. To protect someone I love. Marcus opened the folder, revealing photographs of Sophia at charity events, copies of her volunteer applications, documentation of her entire deception. Ethan is the one decent member of our family. He's also naive enough to believe in fairy tale love stories. My feelings for Ethan are real. Are they? Or have you simply been playing your role so long that you've convinced yourself the performance is genuine? Marcus leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to disappear from my brother's life. Quietly, cleanly, with a story that preserves his dignity. And if I refuse? Then Ethan learns that his beloved wife is David Bennett's daughter, that your entire relationship was built on a plan to destroy him for revenge against me. Marcus's smile was razor sharp. How do you think that revelation will affect him? Chapter 8. The confrontation that threatens everything. You can't prove anything, Sophia said, though her voice lacked conviction. Can't I? Marcus slid the folder across his desk. Private investigator's report, complete with photos of you visiting your father's grave, documentation of your research into Ethan's schedule before your first meeting, records of your employment history, including the fact that you quit 3 jobs to volunteer full-time at the literacy center exactly when my brother would be there. Sophia's hands shook as she looked through the evidence. Marcus had been thorough. Every step of her plan was laid out in black and white, undeniable and damning. The question, Marcus continued, is what story we tell when you disappear. Do we go with realized marriage was a mistake and left to find herself? Or do we go with revealed as a gold-digging fraud who married for revenge? I'm willing to be generous if you cooperate. I won't leave him, Sophia said fiercely. Whatever my original reasons, I love Ethan now. Our marriage is real. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like an elaborate con job that got out of hand. Marcus's voice was ice cold. You targeted my brother specifically because you wanted to hurt me. Every moment of your relationship has been built on that foundation. That's not true anymore. Isn't it? Tell me, Sophia, what was your end game? When were you planning to spring the trap? During the divorce proceedings? A public scandal timed to destroy my campaign for governor? Sophia's silence was answer enough. Exactly what I thought. Marcus stood moving around his desk to tower over her. You came here to destroy my family, and now you want me to believe you've had a change of heart. That love conquered all. People can change, Sophia said desperately. What I feel for Ethan now. What you feel is guilt for manipulating a good man. Don't confuse remorse with love. You don't know anything about what I feel. I know you're a liar, Marcus said bluntly. I know you built your entire relationship with my brother on deception. I know that every kiss, every tender moment, every declaration of love has been tainted by your agenda. The words hit like physical blows. That's not true? Then why haven't you told him the truth? Marcus's smile was triumphant. 9 months of marriage and you still haven't been honest about who you are or why you targeted him. If your love is so pure, so real, why are you still lying? Sophia stared at him, trapped by the logic she couldn't refute. She hadn't told Ethan the truth because she was terrified of losing him, which meant, on some level, she knew their relationship couldn't survive the foundation it was built on. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus continued. You're going to end your marriage quietly. Tell Ethan you made a mistake, that you need space to figure out who you are. I'll make sure the divorce is generous. You'll walk away with enough money to start over somewhere far from Seattle. I won't take your money. You'll take it because the alternative is watching Ethan's heart break when he learns that the woman he loves never existed. Marcus returned to his chair, his expression bored. My brother is a romantic. He believes in fairy tales and happy endings. Learning that his wife married him for revenge will destroy him. And you care about that? Ethan is the only member of my family worth protecting, Marcus said quietly. Whatever you think of me, I love my brother. I won't let you destroy him to get to me. Sophia felt tears threatening. Please, there has to be another way. There is. Tell him the truth yourself. Confess everything and see if your fairy tale love survives reality. Marcus leaned back in his chair. But we both know you won't do that, don't we? Because you know exactly how much truth your marriage can handle. You're a monster, Sophia whispered. I'm a businessman who protects his investments. Ethan is my investment in goodness, in the possibility that our family legacy can be something other than ruthless acquisition. Marcus's expression grew almost sad. I won't let you take that away from him, no matter how justified your anger might be. Sophia stood on trembling legs. How long do I have? 2 weeks. That should give you time to craft a believable story about why you're leaving. Marcus turned back to his computer, dismissing her. Don't make me remind you what happens if you refuse. As Sophia walked through the lobby of Hartwell Industries, past the portraits of Marcus and Ethan that hung near the elevators, she realized she'd lost everything. Her revenge had failed, her marriage was doomed, and the man she'd grown to love would either be destroyed by the truth or devastated by her abandonment. She'd set out to hurt Marcus Hartwell and had ended up destroying herself instead. The only question now was whether she could find a way to save Ethan from the wreckage of her choices. Chapter 9. Sophia chooses love over revenge. Sophia sat in her car outside the literacy center for 20 minutes, watching through the windows as Ethan worked with the children who adored him. He was helping a little boy sound out words from a Dr. Seuss book, his patience infinite as they worked through each syllable together. This was the man she'd planned to destroy, this kind, generous soul who made the world better simply by existing in it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Tick-tock, Sophia. 12 days left. She deleted it without responding and walked into the center. Hey, beautiful, Ethan said, looking up with the smile that had become her favorite thing in the world. You're early. I thought you had meetings all afternoon. I did. They finished quickly. The lie came easily, as all her lies did now. How's it going here? Great. Tommy just read his first complete sentence. Tell her, Tommy. The little boy beamed up at Sophia. The cat sat on the hat. That's amazing, Tommy. Sophia knelt to his level, her heart breaking as she realized these children would be another casualty of her deception. You're such a good reader. As the afternoon wore on, Sophia watched Ethan work with a clarity that felt like seeing him for the first time. He wasn't just volunteering, he was investing himself completely in every child's success, remembering details about their lives, celebrating small victories like they were Olympic medals. When the center closed and they walked to their car together, Ethan caught her hand. "You've been quiet today. Everything okay?" "Ethan," Sophia said, stopping in the parking lot. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "What would you do if someone you loved had lied to you about something important, something that affected your entire relationship?" Ethan's expression grew serious. "That's a complicated question. I suppose it would depend on why they lied and whether they were willing to tell the truth eventually. But could you forgive them, even if their lies had hurt you?" "I think forgiveness is always possible if the person is genuinely sorry and committed to being honest going forward." Ethan studied her face. "Sophia, what's this about? Is there something you need to tell me?" Here was her moment. She could confess everything: her real identity, her revenge plan, her father's death. She could tell him about Marcus's ultimatum and beg for forgiveness. Instead, she kissed him, soft and desperate and full of all the love she'd never expected to feel. "I just love you," she whispered against his lips. "So much it scares me sometimes." "I love you too," Ethan replied, holding her close. "Whatever's worrying you, we'll figure it out together. That's what marriage means." That night, as Ethan slept peacefully beside her, Sophia made her decision. She couldn't tell him the truth. It would destroy him, just as Marcus had predicted. But she also couldn't disappear without explanation, leaving him to wonder what he'd done wrong. There had to be a third option. At 3 a.m., she slipped out of bed and opened her laptop. If she was going to lose everything anyway, she might as well make it count. She began typing, "An open letter to Seattle. The truth about Marcus Hartwell and the businesses he destroys." If she couldn't have her revenge through Ethan, she'd get it another way. The story of Bennett Books, her father's death, and Marcus's ruthless business practices would make front-page news by morning. Marcus Hartwell was about to learn that some people couldn't be silenced with threats. Chapter 10. Finding Justice Together Without Destroying Their Love. Sophia was putting the finishing touches on her exposé when gentle hands covered hers on the keyboard. "Sophia?" Ethan's voice was soft in the darkness. "What are you doing?" She turned to find him standing behind her chair, reading over her shoulder. Her heart hammered as she watched his expression change from confusion to understanding, to something that might have been heartbreak. "Your father was David Bennett," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Bennett Books, the store Marcus bought and demolished." "Yes." Ethan sank into the chair beside her, running his hands through his hair. "How long have you known who I was?" "From the beginning." The words came out barely above a whisper. "I researched your family after Dad died. I planned everything, meeting you, the volunteer work, our relationship. I wanted to hurt Marcus by destroying you." Ethan was quiet for so long that Sophia thought he might not respond at all. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "And now? What do you want now?" "Now I want to protect you from the mess I've made," Sophia said, tears streaming down her face. "Marcus knows who I am. He's threatened to expose everything unless I disappear from your life. I can't let him hurt you because of my mistakes." "So you were going to publish this story and disappear?" "I was going to make sure Marcus faced consequences for what he did, even if it meant losing you." Ethan was quiet again, studying the article she'd written. It was thorough, well-researched, devastating in its detail about Marcus's business practices and their human cost. "This is good," he said finally. "Powerful. But it's not complete." Sophia's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "It's missing the most important part of the story." Ethan turned to face her, his brown eyes intense. "The part about how love can grow from the worst circumstances. The part about forgiveness and second chances." "Ethan, I don't understand." "You came here for revenge, but you stayed for love. That's a story worth telling." He reached for her hands. Marcus destroyed your father's business, but he didn't destroy your capacity for goodness. You could have gone through with your original plan, but you chose to protect me instead. I lied to you for months. I married you under false pretenses. You married me. Whatever your reasons were at the beginning, the woman I fell in love with is real. The marriage we've built is real. The work we've done together is real. How can you forgive me? Because I understand why you did it. Because I know who you are now, not just who you were when this started. Ethan squeezed her hands. Because I love you enough to fight for us. Marcus will never stop. Let me worry about Marcus. I've been protecting myself from my brother's schemes for years. Ethan's smile was grim but determined. It's time I started protecting other people from him too. What are you saying? I'm saying we publish your story, but we do it together, with both our names on it. The Hartwell family civil war becomes public, and Marcus loses his political aspirations forever. Ethan, you'd be giving up your relationship with your brother. I'm choosing my wife over my brother. I'm choosing justice over family loyalty. I'm choosing the woman who taught me that love is worth fighting for. As the Seattle dawn broke over the city, Sophia and Ethan worked together to finish the article that would change everything. By afternoon, Marcus Hartwell's political career was over, and the couple who'd found love in the ashes of revenge were ready to build something beautiful together. Some stories of justice required destroying everything. The best ones required the courage to heal. Epilogue. 2 years later, Sophia stood in the grand opening of the Bennett Hartwell Community Reading Center, watching Ethan help children navigate the maze of bookshelves that filled the converted warehouse space. The center was everything her father had dreamed of, a place where books and community intersected, where children could discover stories that would change their lives. He would have loved this, said her mother, appearing at Sophia's elbow with tears in her eyes. Margaret Bennett had been skeptical when Sophia first introduced Ethan, suspicious of Hartwell's motives. But watching him pour his heart into honoring David Bennett's legacy had won her over completely. Dad would have been amazed, Sophia agreed. A reading center funded by Hartwell money, built to honor the bookstore Marcus destroyed. The irony would have made him laugh. The expose they'd published had done more than end Marcus's political career. It had sparked a citywide conversation about corporate responsibility and community preservation. Marcus had been forced to resign from Hartwell Industries, and Ethan had taken over with a mandate to change the company's practices entirely. The first thing he'd done was establish a fund to support small businesses displaced by development. The second was to build a reading center on the exact site where Bennett Books had once stood. Ms. Sophia, Emma, now 10 and one of the center's most enthusiastic volunteers, came running over with a book clutched to her chest. Can you help me set up the story time corner? The little kids are coming soon. Of course, sweetheart. As Sophia helped arrange colorful cushions and picture books, she caught sight of Ethan across the room. He was deep in conversation with a group of parents, explaining the center's tutoring programs with the same passion he brought to everything involving children's literacy. Their eyes met across the bustling space, and he smiled. The same warm, genuine smile that had first made her question her revenge plan. But now there were no lies between them, no hidden agendas or secret motives. Just love built on truth and forgiveness. Ready for story time? Ethan asked, joining her in the children's area as families began gathering around them. Always, Sophia replied, settling into the reading chair that had been her father's at Bennett Books, carefully preserved and restored for this new beginning. As she opened the first book and began to read to a circle of eager young faces, Sophia realized that revenge had never been the answer. Justice was sweeter when it came with healing, when it built something beautiful from the ashes of what had been destroyed. Marcus Hartwell had taken her father's bookstore, but he hadn't been able to touch her father's legacy. That lived on in every child who discovered the magic of reading, in every family that found community and shared stories, in every life changed by the simple act of opening a book. Some battles were won not by destroying your enemies, but by building something so beautiful that their destruction became irrelevant, And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you found love in the process. The end.
Thank you for staying till the end. If you enjoy the video, please hit the like button, share, and comment. We'll love to hear from you.